You are listening to Processing Trauma Out Loud, conversations about trauma and healing from two women who are doing the work.
Hey everyone, this is Kandace and Sher with Processing Trauma Out Loud. Sher, last week we started a little bit of a kind of the end of the year series before we head into 2025, and we are looking at some specific things that we want to be aware of as we're starting a new year. And so last week we talked about the idea of reflecting and kind of taking an inventory of where we've been and where we want to go. And this week we are going to be looking at this idea of releasing. And so can you share with our listeners, like, you came up with this. And so can you put some language to what do you mean when you say releasing?
Yeah, and I'm just, as you were talking, I was even thinking about posture as we're becoming more aware of our bodies and how we embody, how we are wanting to show up in life more embodied. And I'm thinking about the posture of reflection is kind of that looking back of where have I been? What's been going on back there? And then when I think about releasing, I think about this posture of open hands, of what am I able to release? What have I been holding on to that is no longer serving me in ways that are facilitating where I am now, where I am in my life now, and where I am wanting to go in my life now. And so we just talked about 3 questions. And so we're just going to talk about one for a few minutes and then we'll go on to the next one. But as we think about what do we want to release, the first thought that we are focusing on is time wasters and energy wasters. So as I look back over the last year and I'm thinking about what do I want to release, what are some things that wasted my time or my energy that I don't feel super good about? And that as I think about starting in a new year and turning that page, so to speak, what do I want to release so that I'm not holding on to it going forward when I actually am aware that, hey, this is something that it just doesn't fit anymore and I'm ready to let go of it. So yeah, what wasted my time or what wasted my energy?
What came up in me, because I was listening to you, but I also had this thought of I mostly felt pretty good about where my time and energy went in this last year, but the area that is a continual growth for me, and I thought of this because of a conversation I had with my daughter, but I do waste some energy on still caring about what people think about me. Like I have this part that will scan, well, what would this person think? Or what would this person think? And I want to have less of that in 2025. Now, that's not to say I don't have people that I deeply care about their thoughts for my journey and can question me and be with me. That's not what I'm talking about. Where I go is there's usually some type of a fear that they won't accept me.
Yeah. And just to develop that a little bit more, and why has that been something you've needed? How did that awareness or hypervigilance, how has that helped you survive?
I don't even know where to start there.
Yeah.
I will just say I was made very aware at a very young age how people felt about me.
Yeah. And then the coping skills get established of being hypervigilant, noticing the room, reading the look on people's faces, all the things that gave you clues about, am I safe or am I not safe? And so, yeah, Kandace, like those were things that were survival skills and you have needed. And now what I hear you saying is maybe there's some of that you want to release.
Yeah, definitely. And then I think, being in systems where image is more important than authenticity has also been a part of that, where not living by all the rules necessarily, but to know that as I grow and change and heal and stay connected to who I am and what I believe, it will be okay. if there are those who aren't okay with that.
Mm, yeah. So good. Like it'll be okay for you and it will actually be okay for them too.
Yeah, and maybe even give them permission to do the same. But yeah, what about you, Cher? What's something that you feel like maybe you want to spend less energy and time on in the coming year?
Yeah. This is something that a lot of people will think about. And it's kind of a surfacey thing, but I'm going to name it anyway because it is the thing that comes most to my mind and that is scrolling social media.
Mhm.
I get such a kick out of the reels. And I mean, I sometimes can just sit and laugh so hard. And so there's a goodness there and there's a draw there. There's a playfulness there that I think is good. But I think because I have it on my phone that when I have downtime, it can be really easy to just begin scrolling and within a couple of minutes I'm into the reels and then a half an hour goes by and I'm wanting to reclaim some of that time and
Okay.
not saying I won't still do it from time to time, but I think I'm going to make it a little more difficult by just taking the app off my phone and
Okay.
even just that, sometimes when you have to actually go to the website and log in, it's an extra step. And I think that will give me some time back that I want to have time for some other things.
Well, I have a curiosity about that
Yeah.
because, sometimes you'll send a reel that we all are just laughing so hard at, but do you feel so like, okay, so I'm going to be intentional to allow myself to enjoy scrolling. And, some of those reels are funny. Some of them are very moving. Some of them are just plain ridiculous. But do you feel like that's different than you realize you're doing it as some sort of escape or disassociation?
Yeah, I do not think it is escape or disassociation. I really think it is just a huge time waster.
Mm. Just inviting our listeners, right, to journal about that question or call a friend and say, hey, I've got these 3 questions that I was kind of prompted to ask myself. Do you want to do this with me? And
Yeah.
so, yeah, what do you got next, friend?
Yeah, and I'm just going to say one more thing about that. I feel a little grief even as I'm making this decision because of the goodness of just laughing hard about something that is just silly. So I'm
I have
not
a solution for that.
yeah.
You could make your own reels and make
Yeah.
other people.
Yeah. I'm not that funny though. That's the problem.
I know, me either.
That would be fun though. I wish I was funnier. Um
I think you're pretty funny sometimes.
That I would actually take that as a big compliment. If people thought I was funny, I think that would feel really good to me because I am much more of a serious and I will go deep but I think I have this hidden desire that I would really be a really funny person.
Well,
So,
here's the thing. I've been around you a lot and I think you're fun, but going deep can be fun for me,
yeah.
right?
Yeah,
So,
right.
but funny, I mean, it's just some people's gift, okay?
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
it's not ours.
After I answer the third question, we're going to do the second one first. But after I answer the third question, then that might open up some more space for that. So we will come back to that in a minute. So the first question was, as I look back on 2024, what are some things that wasted my time or energy? The second question that we want to ponder is, what are some fears that controlled me? Some fears that I'm really, as I look at it today, I'm like, I really want to release these fears. There might be a process to that needs to happen. It might be something that you need to talk with somebody or even do a ritual but is there some fear that just keeps popping up and when it pops up, you find yourself going young, maybe, or you find yourself shutting down or giving up your dreams or desires. Yeah. What's a fear that you want to release, Candace?
So when you say fear, like I have this, I have fears. I'm also pretty fearless
Mm,
in some respects. When I think of my childhood, I was gripped with fear often, very vivid memories of just my body being terrified. And so that was also connected with this fear of being alone. When I think about, okay, where am I at with that? And going into this new year, I feel that is something that I'm still kind of processing through for whatever reason, like physical aloneness. Now, I do like my times of solitude and stuff like that, but that's what comes to me is I have a hard time if I feel like I'm going to be left alone.
And understandable. Yeah. So,
So have grown so much in that, but
yeah.
I want to say sure I have not arrived. Like
Yeah.
I'm growing and I'm healing, but I can still feel that little pit in my stomach at times if I think I'm going to be left alone.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What about you?
Good awareness. I love that. I think one of the things that comes to my mind, a few things actually come to my mind, but I think one that's a big thing for me is this fear that I'm going to do something wrong, that I will say the wrong thing, or I will post the wrong funny video, or seriously, sometimes after I post something like that, and then if nobody responds right away, I'll start to feel like, oh no, was it offensive and I didn't realize it? But I think this responsibility as being, I've been reading just some things about the responsibility that the oldest daughter in a family often carries, even if she's not the oldest child, but the oldest daughter. Kind of, this is just some typical aspects, but one of them is this sense of responsibility that everybody will be okay and everyone will be okay. That has really affected my life in some very significant ways of whatever the situation is, I am always feeling a sense of, is everybody okay? And if not, what do I need to do to make it?
Mhm.
And this, I think the fear is, if other people are not okay, then I'm not going to be okay.
Okay, so there's where the fear is,
I think
right?
the fear is, again, it comes back to that thing of safety. Like if other people are out of sorts, or if chaos is ensuing, or somebody is really sad or hurt or angry, or whatever the case may be, then my environment will begin to feel very unsafe for me. So,
Feel like what you would be doing wrong would be not taking care of that person,
mhm,
and that your body holds somewhat of over responsibility to make sure
yeah,
that the other is okay, even if you have to disconnect from yourself.
yes, 100%. No
Yeah.
matter what, I should be aware of what's going on.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it almost feels like the letting go of the fear is an invitation into trusting yourself.
Trusting myself and also trusting others. Most of the time, I am in environments that are highly safe.
Mhm.
And so, if that is true, I can also trust the others who are present to take care of things or to see things that I maybe would miss. So to just be able to be more in a place of rest and allowing individuals to take care of themselves, and then also other members of the group to take care of the group. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. We may have to listen to this next year and see how we've come in some of these
Yeah.
things that we're naming today. So, yeah. So, just for our listeners, what are some things that you want to be intentional about releasing? And even the release is a process, but like having so much grace towards yourself as you're
Mhm.
being intentional to release some of these fears.
It may take the whole year, or it might take the next 5 years to actually release. But as we move toward it with intention, like you said, yeah, then we can begin to experience changes. Okay, the third question. What is a belief or beliefs that I've held on to for too long? What is something that I believe? It might be about myself, it might be about the world, it might be about someone who I'm in relationship with. What is a belief that I've held on to for too long?
This is very interesting because I feel like this is going to be a little bit connected to the fear. I had a belief that fear was a motivator. Now, don't get me wrong. So fear will cause us to do certain things, right? But fear is not a transformer. It's not what leads us to grow and heal and change and transform. And I want to just say, I feel angry that I was kind of taught that.
Yeah. Mm,
And I am saying no more to that belief system.
yeah. Mm. That feels big, really
I
big.
know. I didn't even plan on saying that. But man, because I've been in these environments of such love and compassion and kindness and yes, truth. And I've seen more healing and transformation in the last 4 or 5 years than I had the last 30, being motivated by fear.
Yep.
I'm rebelling against being motivated by fear.
Yeah, and that's a good rebellion too. It really is. And it feels really significant and empowering in according to being able to be who you truly are more fully. The thing that came to my mind was, and this is something that is kind of a somewhat of a new discovery in a different kind of a way. And that is, you and I were talking recently about how you have really been so aware of your teenage girl. And you wrote a whole memoir about your relationship with your teenage girl. And I've been kind of perplexed over the last several months that I really don't know my teenage girl. I've really focused on my younger parts of whom I have a few that show up a lot. But then when I got to this point of like age 11 or 12 and beyond, it almost has been kind of blank for me. And I've been exploring this a little bit more recently. And I recognized how when I became 11, things changed a lot for me. And the next couple of years, I described myself to someone as I was kind of a bad kid. And then she asked me, well, what were some of the bad things you did? And it wasn't, I could tell she was kind of smiling a little bit because what I viewed as me being a bad kid wasn't really very bad. And she even made the point of saying, like, I'm a little intrigued by your use of the term bad kid. But then what I recognize is that when I hit about ninth grade, I just went through this self-imposed transformation where I became the ultimate good girl. Very, very good. And that is what really carried me for the next many years, and maybe I will even say decades, this weight that I wore, that I carried to never do anything wrong, to make sure that I always obey, that I knew the rules and that I obeyed the rules no matter what. And I've just been recognizing how some of the voices that really helped implement that for me came from people and mentors that I had looked at very differently. But now, when I'm looking through this lens of the pressure that was put upon me to know the rules and do the rules and always do things right. And I'm just recognizing how being the good girl caused me to stop being alive in so many ways of who I was, because I was kind of this, in a way, I had a wild freedom. I would climb to the top of trees and I would run through the fields. And I really, and some of that I know is just as we grow a little bit older, but I think not only did I stop some of those practices, but I I changed the way that I was, and that ability to be a free spirit and to have a little bit of a sense of wildness. Just it became something that I had to separate from, and in its place became this weight of being the good girl. This is a belief that I have carried for decades, that I had to be the good girl and get it right and do it right. Yeah, I'm just kind of playing with some thoughts about what does it mean to reclaim my wildish self as a woman in my 60s? What does that look like, and how can that have an impact on my life as I go forward? And I'm just being very playful with that right now. It feels really good.
I know your stories, and if the listeners have been with us for a while, they know a lot of your stories too. So it really does make sense that that part develops so strongly for you as a protector part. I'm speaking IFS language for a second, to not have to feel the pain, right, of what happens when you make a mistake. And so that hyper focus on being good. And I like that you are naming it as a weight,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Like it was a pressure on you for performance.
Yeah.
And so I am just, I have to tell you, I think about you in the last few weeks off and on since we've had this discussion. And I am freaking excited to watch this part of you unfold.
Yeah. Me
And
too. Yeah.
not that it will make me love you more or see you differently in the glory that I've seen you in. It's more about I've seen glimpses of her at times and I like her.
Yeah, I thank you for telling me that. And I think for me too, it feels like it's this part, it's the authentic me that just has not been allowed to really breathe freely. And I think I am really inviting that forward in some new ways. And it just feels sweet and good and empowering. And so, yeah, expect Cher Nyquist to show up differently in 2025.
Well, I'm happy to be along the ride with you in this. And
Yeah.
yeah, so just I hope our listeners will take some time to reflect on these three questions as a means to be intentional about what you want growth and change and transformation in 2025. And I don't know, this came up for me. I want to say this isn't about changing the core of who you are. The core of who you are is beautiful and perfect.
Yeah.
These are things that will actually support
Yep.
the core of who you are.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just felt it was important to say that.
I love it. Yeah, it's exactly what we're talking about here. Releasing the things that are covering up or pressing down the core of who we are so that we can be more authentic and alive and real. Yeah.
Yeah. Good conversation, friend, on release. And I look forward to our next topic, which I don't remember, but maybe you have it.
Is a little bit harder, but good and important, and that is grieving. What are some things that we want to grieve as we leave 2024?
Well, I look forward to that conversation too. Love you.
Yeah, me too. Love you too.
Thank you for listening to Processing Trauma Out Loud. Make sure to check out the show notes for links to suggested resources and social media. Like, subscribe, and follow to keep up with our weekly content. And if you don't mind, take a moment to rate and review us. Your feedback is extremely valuable and contributes to the success of this podcast. One last thing. If you have found this podcast helpful in any way, or if you have questions on how to take the next steps on your healing journey, please reach out to us via email at KandaceSher@gmail.com. That's KandaceSher@gmail.com. Our sound engineer is Jeremiah Jones of Auditory LLC. We welcome you to join us for more conversations soon. Take care.